The first words she spoke on entering her house were to order her carriage, and having gone so far in the performance of the task she had undertaken, she turned with tender kindness to her old friend, and gave as much care to her comfort and refreshment as if the relative situation which they had borne to each other in days of yore was just reversed, and that Mary was the nurse, and Miss Tremlett the nursling. You shall do nothing more before dinner, my dear good soul, but lie down upon the sofa and get cool. Not even Miss Gabberly, I suppose, could see anything particularly dangerous and improper in me going alone to pay a visit to Martha Dowling. And alone to Dowling Lodge the heiress went, pretty steadfastly determined not to leave it till she had learned exactly at what point of the earth's surface Michael Armstrong might be found. She inquired for Martha, and was shown as usual into my lady's morning drawing-room, where, to her extreme annoyance, she found her ladyship, Sir Matthew, Lady Clarissa Shrimpton, and Miss Mogg. If Lady Dowling could have been glad to see any pretty young lady, it would have been Miss Brotherton, and she did not exert herself more than usual to be civil, while on the contrary Sir Matthew felt both and evinced considerably less satisfaction at the sight of her than he had ever done since the fact of her heirship had become a matter of unquestionable notoriety to the whole neighbourhood. But if his reception was cold, that of Lady Clarissa was warm, for she actually threw her arms around the young lady, reproaching her at the same time very tenderly for not having sent to say she was going to drive to Dowling Lodge. I should have liked your carriage, my dear, so much better than my broiling little Fention. It was hardly possible at the moment that either one of the four persons present could have said anything to her sufficiently interesting to fully awaken her sense of hearing, unless, indeed, Sir Matthew had led the conversation to Michael Armstrong, but he did not do so, and, therefore, having endured Lady Clarissa's embrace, and answered her mechanically, she knew not what, Miss Brotherton walked up to the sofa where the lady of the mansion, as usual, sat enthroned, and said, "Will you be so good, madam, as to let Miss Martha be told that I am come to call upon her?" The surprised eyebrows with which her ladyship listened to this speech would, probably under other circumstances, have given birth to an exceedingly comical caricature. But at this moment Mary Brotherton had no fun in her thoughts, and not immediately receiving an answer, she said, loud enough for Sir Matthew to hear, "Will you give me leave to ring the bell and ask for the pleasure of seeing Miss Martha?" Lady Dowling still remained silently staring at her, but not so Sir Matthew. He reached the bell almost as soon as the young lady herself, and fully persuaded that this most unaccountable request could only proceed from some little manoeuvring project at the moment labouring in the fair Brotherton's head, which had, somehow or other, his son Augustus for its object, his countenance resumed all its former affectionate urbanity towards her, and taking her hand too suddenly for any contrivance to prevent it, he said, "Martha? Do you want to see Martha, my dear? To be sure you shall. She is a Dowling, Miss Brotherton, though not quite like the rest of us. But where is the Dowling, young or old, male or female, who would not fly from the farthest corner of the world to see you?" "I only want to see Miss Martha just now, sir," replied Mary, half smiling. "And Martha you shall see, my dear, without a moment's delay. Desire Miss Martha Dowling to come here instantly," he continued, as the door opened, and a servant appeared at it, adding, when the door closed again, "You do her an honour, my dear Miss Brotherton, in thus asking for her, that more than one of her family, perhaps, might feel inclined to envy." But as Miss Brotherton made no answer at all, and Lady Clarissa began to hem and fidget and walk towards the window, all which the observant knight knew well were pretty lures meant to recall him, he contented himself with gallantly drawing forward an armchair for the heiress at no great distance from the Lady Dowling, and then strode across the apartment to soothe the irritation of his noble friend. Martha never suffered a summons from her father to remain a moment unanswered. The message had been delivered to her in his name, and she entered almost immediately. Miss Brotherton, who was in no humour to make small talk for her ladyship, instantly rose, and went forward to meet her. "I took the liberty of sending for you, my dear Miss Martha," she said, "to request you would let me speak to you alone for 5 minutes. Will you take a parasol, and let us walk into the shrubbery together?" Martha, who certainly liked Miss Brotherton notwithstanding the late painful scene produced by her indiscretion, and who, moreover, at this moment joyfully recollected how charming an anecdote she had now to relate concerning her father, acquiesced to this proposal with a ready smile, and saying that her parasol was always in the hall, the two young ladies left the room together. No sooner did she find herself beneath the sheltering trees of the extensive shrubbery, and ascertained, by looking round, that they were really alone, than Miss Brotherton, passing her arm through that of her companion, said, "My dear Miss Martha, I cannot help feeling great interest in the welfare of the little boy whom we saw performing the other night, little Mchl Armstrong, I mean. Will you have the kindness to tell me where he is now?" Instead of giving a direct answer, Martha eagerly exclaimed, "I am so glad, Miss Brotherton, that you asked to see me, for I have quite longed to tell you all the particulars about that little fellow, and all that Papa has been doing for him. I do assure you, Miss Brotherton, that notwithstanding what you saw the other night, Papa has been, and still is, most excessively kind to him. Only he was very troublesome about the acting, and Papa's temper is hasty. That, as you must be aware, Miss Brotherton, is the case with many people, but there is very few who have courage and candor to own it, as my father does. In justice to him, I must tell you what happened this morning after the unfortunate play. My father sent for me and said that he was perfectly miserable in his mind on account of the anger he had shown towards Mchl. He told me, as frankly as possible, that he had beat him, and that in consequence of this the boy was evidently so afraid of him that he had no enjoyment when in his presence, and he went on to say that such being the case he was determined to apprentice the child to a good trade, where he might learn to maintain himself comfortably, and assist his family besides. So you see, Miss Brotherton, continued Martha, in an eager voice, with a heightened colour, you see that if Papa loses his temper, he knows how to atone for it." Miss Brotherton listened to this statement with the most unbroken attention, and she had not been previously aware of the kind and excellent nature of Martha Dowling. She would have become so then. Her hopes, too, that all was fair and right concerning the disposal of the little boy were strengthened, and in full confidence of receiving a satisfactory answer, she said, "I am very much obliged to you, Martha, for telling me all this, because I truly feel an interest in the little fellow, and now I hope you will tell me also to what part of the country he has been sent." "I would tell you in a moment if I knew, my dear Miss Brotherton, but I do not. His departure at last was very sudden, owing, I believe, to Papa's having found some particularly good opportunity of sending him." "I wonder you should never have asked him where he was sent to, Miss Martha," said Mary gravely. "I did ask, Miss Brotherton," replied Martha, "but Papa said he could not recollect the name of the place." Mary changed colour, as she remembered the promise she had given to the child's mother, but after a moment's reflection said, "Perhaps he may recollect it, since, my dear, I wish you would run in and ask him to come to me for a moment." Martha seemed to hesitate. "I am sure," she said after a little hesitation, "that Papa would be delighted to come here to talk with you, Miss Brotherton, only Lady Clarissa might—" "Nay, then, I'll go to him myself," said Mary rather abruptly. "There's no particular objection, I suppose, to Lady Clarissa being let into the secret of little Michel's abode." And immediately turning her steps towards the house, she re-entered the drawing-room, followed by Martha. They found Sir Matthew engaged in exhibiting a portfolio of splendid engravings to her ladyship, who was descanting upon them with rapture, though the application of a near-sighted glass to one long-sighted eye, while the other was effectually closed, rendered them pretty nearly invisible to her. "I beg 10,000 pardons, Sir Matthew," said the heiress, placing herself at the opposite side of the loo table, and thereby commanding a perfect view of his countenance, But you are too good-natured, I am sure, to be angry with me, even though I do interrupt you. Will you have the kindness to tell me, sir, while Lady Clarissa is lost in admiration of that enchanting Venus, where little Mchl Armstrong has been sent to?" The question was too unexpected for even Sir Matthew's sturdy self-possession to receive it as he would have wished to do. His bold eye, which had been gaily fixed on the young lady as she spoke to him, fell before her keen, inquiring glance, and he turned the page of Lady Clarissa's adoration with rather unseemingly rapid rapidity as he replied, "To a tradesman, that is, to a manufacturer some miles further north, Miss Brotherton. I have just been telling Lady Clarissa, continued the knight, recovering his audacity, that I have just been telling her all the little fellow's adventures. The love of novelty seems to have superseded all other love in his young heart, for he was delighted to go. But he could not have liked going without taking leave of his mother and brother, Sir Matthew. I have just seen them, and they are in a perfect agony about him. In fact, I am come here on purpose to ask where he has been sent. Fairest of messengers, exclaimed the knight with a tender smile, how utterly miserable I shall be if I cannot answer you. I think it is to Halifax. I am almost sure that it is either to Halifax or Wakefield that he has gone. You've found the little fellow apprentice, and you do not know where? Said Miss Brotherton, with undisguised astonishment. I do not say that, my dear young lady. I know he is apprentice to an excellent good man, who is a stocking weaver, but he has 2 or 3 large concerns belonging to him, and I protest to you that at this moment I cannot really say to which this little fellow has been sent. I'm quite shocked to give you so much trouble, Sir Matthew, returned Mary, but I should be exceedingly obliged if you would learn the name of the place, and let me know it. I venture, sir, to promise the boy's mother that I would learn this for her, and am quite sure that you will not let me disappoint her. Most assuredly not. I will call, or send tomorrow at the latest, my charming Miss Brotherton. How I adore your benevolence! No wonder you're such friends, Lady Clarissa. Your hearts are made upon the same model. To this satisfactory assurance, Miss Brotherton made no answer, but telling Sir Matthew that she would remain at home on the morrow for the purpose of receiving his promised information, took her leave. With increased dislike of Sir Matthew, perhaps, yet with no very serious fears about the fate of little Mchl, Miss Brotherton boldly determined to brave all the wonder which the act might occasion, and ordered her carriage to stop at number 12, Hoxley Lane, Ashley.